Have you ticked off your bucket list and are looking for somewhere completely different to what you've experienced before? Perhaps you're feeling called to a more spiritual, peaceful, and life changing experience. Well, I have the perfect destination for you, and you may never have even heard of it before. Get ready because today's episode, we are diving deep into all things Bhutan. Huzu Zengpola, which means hello in Bhutanese. Throughout this month, we're highlighting incredible destinations around the world that truly embody what it means to travel sustainably and what the future of travel could and should look like. For those of us who have traveled extensively, you will have been faced with the reality of what many destinations are grappling with right now from an ecological standpoint. In episode 58, I walked you through the latest list of destinations to try to avoid because of this ecological impact that tourism is having. However, there are truly incredible destinations around the world that are really taking the lead on how to invite travelers to their country with sustainability and positive cultural impact in mind. And there are very few countries in the world that take sustainable travel to the level that today's country does, and that is Bhutan. I'm joined today by Sari Freeman, owner and chief sales and marketing strategist at her company Passages of Distinction. Sari is trusted by some of the world's most prestigious brands, and she has built a reputation over 3 decades working on sales and marketing strategies for travel and hospitality businesses in all four corners of the world. She is a true hospitality and tourism expert, and Sari brings a wealth of market knowledge. We're so grateful to have just a sliver of her time today. And one of her key partners is actually the Department of Tourism in Bhutan. So we are going to dive into all the ins and outs of the why, when, and how you should visit Bhutan. All right, off we go. Welcome to another episode of the Transform with Travel podcast. I'm joined today by the one and only Sari Freeman, owner and chief sales and marketing strategist of Passages of Distinction. Welcome to the pod, Sari.
Thank you, Kelly. It's wonderful to be here.
And we got connected initially at a conference in New York put on by my host agency, Fora. And your passion for wellness and spirituality and really those like immersive destinations around the world really resonated with me. And you were on stage talking about Bhutan. And I think
Right.
I like immediately came up to you afterward and I was like, "Hi, I'm Kelly. You need to be on my podcast."
And I was like, wow, that is really cool. Yeah. I like to hear that I'm effective at what I do.
Right?
It's always nice.
And one of your key partners who you actively help market and promote around the world is the Department of Tourism for Bhutan. And when my team and I were deciding which destinations we really wanted to learn more about and really wanted to share with our community, especially from a sustainability perspective, we knew we needed to hear more about Bhutan. So I'm really thankful that you're here today to share your personal stories. You've even met the king of Bhutan, which we'll talk about later, and just really share more about this relatively unknown yet truly transformational destination. So thank you.
No, I'm delighted to be here. Always delighted to speak about Bhutan. It's a very special, special destination.
So you've had quite a long and impressive career in travel and hospitality. Could you start by sharing a bit about your journey and how you became the owner of Passages of Distinction?
Sure. Well, I was very fortunate. My parents were very open-minded, wanted us, my sister and I, to learn French at a very early age, like 5 and 7. And it sort of started me on a path of international discovery. I'm fluent in French, quite fluent anyway, because I studied for so many years and then eventually studied abroad. And in those years, it was like a whole year without a heck of a lot of communication, not like today where you can FaceTime everybody. Anyway, I studied Spanish, Italian, Russian, German, a little bit of, a few languages. And it just opened my mind to other worlds, other places. I never studied anything like Bhutanese, but that actually everybody there pretty much speaks English. But that sort of got me on a path of going into tourism because I wanted to use my languages. And then from tourism, I went into hotel business. And that's kind of how I got started in hotels. I was one of the first people to represent Aman Resorts in the US. And yeah, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
And
that's like
they
my
were
dream hotel.
I know. This is when they were a very small company, just a fairly new company. That gives you an idea how long I've been in the business. And I worked for a company, the sister company, that had one of a kind hotels, each one having their own name and unique ambiance and all. So I kind of, when I started my own company, when I had my daughter and I wanted to kind of have a little more control over my life, I wanted to start my own company and was able to take that as my first account. So I started as Sari, Freeman Associates, which for several, like about 8, 10 years, I was on my own, and then brought in a business partner. We created Passages, and then we had split, I would say, and then went on to develop Passages. So yeah, that's kind of how it's all happened. It's
And
about
can you just
25 years.
wow. And can you describe what Passages is and what it does for the hospitality and tourism industry?
Sure. So we are what we like to call a sales and marketing representation company. And what we do is represent products, whether it's hotels, villa companies, resorts, DMCs, which are destination management companies, and also tourism offices. And so, what we do, we specialize in the travel industry. So, like Fora is part of the travel industry. We specialize in working with travel advisors, the travel industry, educating them, helping to service the advisors when they have questions, if they need VIP treatment, special negotiations, basically giving them the perks and helping with the perks to help you as an advisor to create an amazing experience for your clients.
Yeah, and also for me as an advisor, because I know your company and I trust the hotels and the villas and the companies that you work with, I know if it has the Passages stamp of approval, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like
Oh,
it gives you like a little peace of mind and trust as an advisor to when you connect. I know I had met with one of your employees, Jill, who came down and we had a really great lunch. And yeah, it just really makes a big difference as an advisor to know that you've put in so many years to build these relationships with these amazing destinations around the world. So
well,
I I,
thank you.
I love everywhere that you represent, and I
Well,
guess
thank you.
that leads us into today's conversation because with such a strong background in luxury travel and destination marketing, and now you represent Bhutan as a country. What drew you to Bhutan as a destination, and what like really called you in to want to be their ambassadors around the world?
Well, honestly, to be very honest, I'm very fortunate because most of our partners that we work with are referred to us. And actually, the Department of Tourism of Bhutan came to us and they talked to several of our competitors as well. And we were the fortunate ones. We were the ones who were selected. And I feel very honored about that because I like to say we have a boutique collection. We don't want a large collection of products. I'd rather know the products and have our team really understand and know our products to be able to help. With Bhutan, I almost feel like it's a boutique destination. It sounds a little corny, but it's true. It's so small. It's so tiny. It's this little amazing but powerful place.
Yeah. And Bhutan, before I learned so much about it, just from learning from you and the industry, I remember Bhutan being this place where I'd see this image of like a monastery on top of a cliff. And then with the caveat that they only let in 100 visitors a day into this country. And it's $100, when it was $100 a day for a visa. I remember being like, wow, like that's really like, exclusive. It's very this, it's very that. And I know that came from primarily a commitment to sustainability and preserving its unique culture. How does Bhutan stand out from other destinations when it comes to that sustainability and eco-friendly tourism lens?
Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, congrats on the studying that you've done and the preparation for this, because I can see that you've done that. I would say, I mean, there's very few countries, honestly, that can come close. Bhutan is actually one of the only carbon negative countries in the
Oh,
world.
wow.
It's funny because I did a little research last night because anything can change day to day, right? So I thought, let me just double check. And one set of information said the only country in the whole world. Another one said there's only three. And so it's definitely one of the only countries. And that is really due to the way the king, the government protects the country and wants to maintain its sustainability and culture and so much about the country. They're very conscientious, extremely mindful. I mean, that's part of their religion, and that's something they're trying to carry through into the future. But it really is something very special.
And when we talk about those, I guess restrictions might be one of the words in terms of how many people they let in. The visa cost is often a hindrance, especially for those on, let's say, more of a budget or on like a backpacker route through India, Nepal. It'd be really easy to tack on Bhutan, but then there's those additional costs. Have they done something recently where they've made have lowered the barrier to entry just a little bit to invite tourism in?
Well, actually, just as COVID ended, and they were one of the last to open up, so it's been a little bit of a, it's taken a little bit to grow back, the percentage of travelers. And actually, the U.S. after India is number two, so we're in good shape
Oh,
because we're such a big market. I would say that, well, first of all, they started off with what they call the SDF. So that's a sustainable development fee. And so that is something that they imposed before COVID as well, but they wanted to ensure that not everybody comes and just, wreaks havoc, right? Because it is such a small country. It's only 750,000 people or
wow.
770,000 people in the whole country. The numbers vary depending upon when you look them up, but under a million for sure. And so just imagine, like where you live, where I live. I mean, what we have 12 million in the New York, or maybe more in the New York tri-state area. To imagine that it's, one, I don't know, 15 20th of our population. It's just unbelievable. In order to maintain that, they do have this SDF. And so they started out at $200 a day per person per day. And then people were like, no, 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 that's too much. So they halved it. So it's $100 per person per day. With children, it's 50%, and for children under 6, I believe it's free. And what they do with that SDF is really important. So what they do is they really take care of their people. They take care of their people, healthcare, education, sustainability, all of these things are factored into this. So it's kind of like a win-win. And yes, it is a fee to get in to visit, but it is so worth it. And I think most people who are interested in going to a country like this are at least interested in sustainability, and many people go because of that.
Yeah.
So if they know that it's going to a good cause and it's helping support the people of the country, because there's not a lot of industry, it's not like they have all these businesses that create all this incredible wealth. And they're more about, as you've heard, gross national happiness sometimes than GDP, which is something the former king developed. And that idea has carried through into the reign of the fifth king.
I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, I would be more than happy to pay a sustainable development fee or sustainability fee. Oftentimes you see the $20 electronic visa, and it's like, what is that? If you told me I would pay $50 for a sustainability fee to enter the country if I knew that what that was going towards. And I think you said the type of traveler that's going to be attracted to some place like Bhutan is happy to be a part of that and know that like their economic dollar is going to something that's going to help be a part of a regenerative travel experience. And that's exactly why we have Bhutan on today in the month of April around Earth Day, is because we want to be able to highlight destinations that are doing that amazing work. So you mentioned the king, and you mentioned the last king, and now you mentioned the new king, and you've had the unique experience of actually meeting the king of Bhutan. Can you tell us about his vision for the country, especially in terms of maintaining Bhutan's status as an unspoiled, authentic, cultural, natural destination?
Let's see. I mean, meeting him, first of all, we had no idea we were going to meet him
Oh,
because it's
no
always,
way.
we didn't know. And it was interesting because I was on a trip with all of these representatives and PR companies from around the world that work with Bhutan. And so they invited us all to Bhutan to kind of do a tour and to brainstorm about how to market Bhutan and to the world, basically. And it was a fascinating trip. I would say it was a little too many people all at once to experience a country like that, but it was amazing. And because we were all there and there was an opportunity, Carissa, who's our chief marketing person for the Department of Tourism, she was able to get us in to see the king. And it was literally the day we all arrived. And we were all in our schleppy clothes. And they didn't even tell us because it was all secret. It was like, you don't want to announce that
Oh
you're
my
going to see the king.
gosh.
So we got into the little bus, and we didn't even know where we were going. Then when we got on the bus, they said, "Okay, we're going to see the king." And we're like, "Oh my God, I would have dressed differently,"
I know, right? Like, I
Um,
put on my Sunday best.
right, exactly. But Bhutan is very casual. So in the end, it's fine. And I don't think that was what, was most important. So we were very fortunate because it was just, I guess about 18 of us. And we walked into his offices and there was a boardroom and we all sat around the boardroom. And then eventually the king came in and unbeknownst to me where he was going to sit, he literally sat across from me. And I was like, oh my God, like this is too much. Because it's not every day you meet a king. Yeah. So it was very interesting. So he really talked to us about our immediate impression about the country. He wanted to hear what we had to say, what our experience was, and about what we do in each of our countries. And then he told us about, his vision for the future. And, he cares deeply about his country. And that's something that I could feel. I think I mentioned during my speech that I felt like he was only talking to me. It was a little bit bizarre, but he almost looked through me and into me. And it was like, but it wasn't intimidating because sometimes when people look at you and stare at you, you're like, oh my God, you want to turn away. But it was sort of a soulful experience. But I could feel, and I think we all could feel his passion for his country and what he hoped to create for his country. And he talked about the happiness quotient, but more importantly, how, yes, they want to look at how happy the people are. And they always ask themselves every day, like, are we happy? How can we be more happy? What can we do for the people? And et cetera. And what's interesting is it's only been open to tourism for 50 years.
Wow.
And they've only had television for like 20.
Wow.
So they've really been, way behind, right, in a lot of ways. And they were very closed. They were very untouched for centuries. That's the reason why it's such an authentic culture, too, and very unique culture. So that's one of the advantages. But so what's happened over the past 20 years is obviously the young people have access to everything from their iPhones, that the older generations never had. And so they're all going off to colleges around the world, and many of them don't want to come back because they are probably, they're influenced by social media and everything else. And so they know that it's a very special country that they're from, but if they want opportunity, financial, whatever, they feel like maybe they need to stay somewhere else. So the king is really working on trying to create something truly unique to encourage the young people to come back and give them an opportunity. And that's by creating this mindfulness city. So
Yeah, what's a mindfulness city? Like I need more. I need more.
I know, I know.
I love it.
I hope I'm not going on too
No, oh
much
my
about all
gosh,
this.
I want to live in a mindfulness city. What does this look like?
No
And the fact that
kidding.
like the king, and I guess this is a really interesting time to be talking about this, but the fact that the king, a leader of a country, is so focused on gross national happiness, which Bhutan is famously known for, and mindfulness, but also how to give young people what they're looking for. Like, what a well-rounded leader and what a special place. So, what does this mindfulness city look like or feel like in terms of his vision for it?
Well, it's really interesting because, they were just starting to work on all of this. And now, well, so basically, the airport that they have now, Paro, is a little tiny airport. And only people with a special license can fly in there. I think there's about 17 or 20 pilots in the whole world that can fly
Wow.
in here.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And first of all, it takes a little time to get there, and it's in the Himalaya, like in the mountains. So when you come in, you have to know how to navigate the winds, the mountains, and then land there. And it's funny because I must specialize in these kind of destinations because I have St. Bart's also, and that's also, you have to have a special license to fly in there. Totally different kind of a destination, but very special in its own way. So you have to fly first into Delhi or Kathmandu or Bangkok or now Dubai. That's big that you can fly through Dubai because a lot of people want to fly on a Middle Eastern carrier because the service is wonderful. And
Mm-hmm.
I won't say it's the easiest place to get to, but it's so worth it. And so what he wants to do is create a new airport and a new city in the south where it's flatter on the border with India. And
Hmm.
they're working very close. They work very closely with the Indian community to help build a lot of this. What they're going to have is a bigger airport so larger planes can come in, but it's going to be almost a separate government almost for that city. so as not to impact, I think, the rest of the country. This is my
Mm,
understanding of it.
mm.
So they're going to have a special, like it's going to be a tech and financial center, but created in a very mindful way. So if he gets to pull this off, which I think he will, it'll be unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I believe he has that commitment and passion to do it, and I think it's going to be his legacy. So he's already talking to like CEOs around the world
Yeah.
about bringing people, opening offices in this incredible city. And they have incredible mock ups of what it's going to look like. And it's going to be like this utopia, tech and financial utopia. So it's really quite something.
It feels like it's almost like a case study for the way that cities could be built or rearranged in the future. I feel like what comes to mind is it will be one of the greatest achievements and also one of the greatest challenges, taking notoriously ruthless industries and bringing them into a culture that is notoriously happy. So
I I know. And I do want to just say that not just because they're always looking at happiness doesn't mean everyone is like giddy all the time.
of
They,
course, of course.
I just want to clarify that. But
I also feel like it's part of like the Buddhist
right.
culture where it's not so much like outwardly joyous happiness, it's like content and peace, which is a whole
Yeah,
different type of
exactly.
happiness. I guess talking about the happiness, we said that Bhutan, it's famous for measuring its success with gross national happiness over GDP. How does this philosophy kind of translate into its tourism practices, or like how does that like affect the visitor or traveler experience?
Experience. Well, I mean, first of all, it's such a peaceful environment. I mean, there's not a lot of tourism. It's not over touristed like so many other places. I mean, you get there and yeah, there might be certain days or certain times of the year that might be a little busier for sure, but you never feel like it's huge crowds. I mean, it's and you have the mountains and the hills and windy roads and lots of space, a lot of open space. And so time to think, space to breathe. I mean, the air is so pure because it's so clean. Like 60% of the land is protected, and that's how
Wow.
they maintain their carbon negative. And a lot of forested property, like a lot of forested property. So it's just a beautiful destination and sort of creates awe in people.
Yeah.
And if you're at all into spirituality, I mean, I think it is such a very special place. And it's a Tibetan Buddhism that I believe it's the only nation in the world that really is fully Tibetan Buddhism. And not to say that everyone is like that, but I would say a good majority, very high percentage. And because they care deeply about their religion and taking care of people, animals, insects, I mean, they don't want to kill anything. They don't want to, I mean, any meat that they have is imported because they
Mm.
don't kill any animals.
So would you say for a traveler heading there to expect mostly vegetarian meals? Like what's the
Well,
day to
no,
day in terms of
you can
cuisine?
have meat. You can have meat. Oh, I'll tell you, the cuisine is quite unique. Again, because it's been this sheltered country, they have amazing vegetables because it's so clean and everything's organic, basically. Because they don't use pesticides or anything. They can't,
Yeah.
they why would they, right? Because they're intelligent. So everything is very fresh. They love chili. They
Ooh,
love
I love
spice.
that. I love that.
I mean, they almost see chili as a vegetable. So it is in a lot of the food. But there's definitely, I mean, when you go to restaurants, if you're in international hotels, I mean, there's many other choices. But if you go to a regular restaurant, I would say maybe 90% of the things are going to be spicy and the 10% might, maybe not. They have dishes with like just potatoes and vegetables and cheese. Potatoes and cheese,
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Oh,
But a lot of the food is very spicy. So if you love spicy, you're in luck.
yeah. I find it so interesting, the organic thing, because it's like you would speak to someone from that culture and be like, is this organic? And it wouldn't even register because it's like all food is like, it's so
Right.
strange that we have to put a label on our food that what's chemical and what's not. So I love that. It sounds like to me from how you're describing it, it's definitely for the nature lovers. It definitely sounds like hiking, even
Yeah.
having some sort of spiritual pilgrimage, or even going through a big life transition. It seems like that kind
Yes.
of country would be a great place for it. I know at Forum, where we met, you spoke about grief. You're
Yes.
going through something where you're grieving because the Buddhist culture is so beautifully woven into that kind of experience. Are there any other types of trips where you would say it would be perfect for that type of traveler?
I would say, I mean, there's so many different options. I would say solo travelers. I mean, it's so safe. And because it's so mindful and spiritual, I think going on your own, you could have a really special experience where maybe some other countries might be more intimidating. And everybody, all the young people speak English. Some of the older generations don't, but I would say like anybody who goes to school learns English. I mean, the primary language in school is pretty much English. That's very comforting for, people from our part of the world. And I would say anybody into sport, like adventure, like soft adventure, even more extreme adventure, you can do like parasailing, you can do hella whatever, you can, I mean they have like a helicopter that could take you around. There's like, I think there's two helicopters in the whole
Oh
country.
my gosh. That should
Yeah.
be that should be the name of a tour company, Hella whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, maybe why don't we start
We'll
that,
coin that, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. And let's see what else. I mean, wellness. I mean, they're
Wellness,
they're
yes.
also into wellness. I mean, that's something we both love, right?
Mhm.
They have been into wellness for centuries. And when you go there, one of the things you like to do is the warm bath, the hot baths with the stones. So they have like a wooden bath where on one side of the wall basically you have hot stones, very hot stones that they put in the water. And so it creates steam, it creates
Wow.
heat, and they put herbs in the water. So it's very relaxing. So after you take these hikes, because if you're not somebody that's in decent physical shape, I would say you won't be able to do everything. If you
Mm.
want to do something like Tiger's Nest, the monastery on the side of the mountain, which everybody wants to do if at all possible, you need to be in decent shape. I work out like 3 times a week, and I think I'm in pretty good shape, but because of the altitude, that's important to talk about. The altitude is really what you have to be prepared for. So
What's
I definitely took
what are we
altitude,
what are we talking
like
here?
9,000
Okay.
feet, I would
Okay.
say something like that. And if anybody hasn't, experienced any high altitudes like that, they have to take it easy. And most any trip you would go on there, they start little by little, like a little hike here, a little walk here, a little hike. And then at the end, you do Tiger's Nest.
Mm.
So if you have somebody guiding you through these things, they know that you have to do it like that. And I would definitely take altitude. That's what I did. I took altitude medicine. I didn't want to take a chance. And also Dramamine for the windy roads, honestly.
Yeah. So sustainability and luxury do not have to be mutually exclusive. Actually, Bhutan and a lot of your destinations, villas, hotels actually do this in combination very, very well. Bhutan has some incredible luxury hotels. So I want to talk a little bit about some of those options for people that are like, Bhutan sounds amazing, sustainability sounds amazing, but I also love my turn down service at night and I also love my, five-star hotel. So can we talk a little bit about how Bhutan does a really great job at being that intersection between luxury travel and sustainability and like getting the best of everything?
Yeah, sure. And I have to say, obviously, because of their commitment to sustainability, any hotel built there has to adhere to strict regulations. And so the usual being cautious about, I mean, you're using solar panels, single use plastic, they use wet water, well water, like water. What is
Mhm.
it called? I forget what the terminology is, but where they
Yeah, like
have,
the catchments almost, like they
yes,
catch the
yes.
rain, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a few notes here, so I'm just kind of referring to a few. But basically, they have to adhere to all of these because the whole idea is preserving this incredible, sustainable destination. And what I do want to say is that a lot of the people on the high end that come here, I mean, it's on their bucket list. We've talked about that because it's so unique a destination. People who have been to Africa, I mean, these days people have been to what, 60 countries. I mean, a lot of young people, I mean, they just check off their list. Like, how many
Mhm.
countries can I get to? Which I think is a little much.
Mhm.
But I think you have to slow down. And if you want to go to a place like Bhutan, you do have to slow down. It's slow travel, basically. And if you really want to experience it properly. But I just wanted to say that if people have been just about everywhere else, this is one of those places that you might find they've never been. And it's interesting because some of the first hotels, chain or group hotels that did come in here, the first one was on resorts, actually.
Oh,
And they have
okay.
5 properties. And then Six Senses came in with
Mm-hmm.
5 properties. And Como Hotels was right in there, maybe second or third with 2 hotels. Then there's some privately owned independent hotels. There's Taj that has several, Meridian. So there's quite a number of 5-star properties, which you wouldn't kind of expect in such a tiny country, but because there's very few new countries, and it was almost like a new country,
Mm-hmm.
that came on the market.
Mm-hmm.
And so these companies hopped on, the bandwagon, and there are some really wonderful privately owned independent hotels like Pemmico, Tented Camp Hotel, or the Bhutan Spirit Sanctuary, Gangati Lodge, and others. And they really are true luxury. And so at these properties, obviously, you can find international cuisine and all of the creature comforts that you might be used to if you're looking at 5-star luxury.
And so you mentioned that the Amman Six Senses, they have 5 properties. Could you just kind of like hop to each property and see different locations? Could that be an itinerary in and of itself, is kind of following along the different hotels? Because for some people, like, I mean, Six Senses, Amman, they're dream hotels. And it's like you could almost make your own little route based
Oh,
on
yeah.
where you're staying. Is that kind of how they designed that? Was that you would
Yes.
almost go along that route?
Yes, exactly. And if you go like with Amman, they would love you to do all
Of course.
5 hotels, and then they help create experiences. And the same for Six Senses and Como. I mean, yeah, that's part of the marketing.
Yeah, totally.
And they do a great job. They have their own destination companies that they work with. But if you want to hire a destination management company, a separate one, and kind of hand tailor a trip, I think you could have an amazing, maybe more diverse experience. It
Right.
just depends on what you're looking for. It really
Totally.
does. But there are so many choices, and being somebody who loves, I didn't even say this before, but I tend to represent privately owned, independent hotels rather than brands and chains. So I personally love something unique.
Yeah, and I
Like
mean that's
this
that's
destination.
it's also why I'm drawn to your company as well, because that's also something that's important to me. When you mentioned, we talked about the 5 different locations that are kind of on like the main track. Could you, like, from a logistics standpoint, how much time should
Yeah.
people plan to spend? Because as you mentioned, there's no direct flight from the US. It's not the easiest country in the world to get
No.
to. So if someone was making this a bucket list trip, what would be the ideal length of time you would have them spend?
I would say 12, 14 days if you
Okay.
could. I mean, I
Okay.
really think
That's not
that if
bad.
you really want to experience it properly, I mean, I wish I could do that. That's what I would do.
And when you say 5 destinations, is that really like the main places people would be going to? Could you say, do you know their names? Would you be able to share those hot spots,
W-
I guess?
Well, I would say the ones that keep coming up the most often are, well, Paro is where the airport is, and
Okay.
Thimphu is the capital, and they're like about an hour apart.
That's like
Yeah,
me going to Miami.
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
that is me going to
Yeah,
Miami.
right, exactly. There's not as much traffic, I
Yeah.
can tell
Oh,
you.
it'd be a lot
Um,
more peaceful of a drive for sure.
Yeah, and the drivers might be better. No,
Oh yeah, for
but
real. They'll be
no,
nicer at least, yeah.
but it is very windy. Okay, so you have to be prepared for that. And actually, if you're in a private car, it's even feels more windy than in a bus. So whatever, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
it's worth every minute. So then there is Punakha, which was the most stunning of the places we went. We only went to the 3 places because we
Mm,
only had 6 days. So how much can you do in 6 days?
right.
But I've also heard, and that's a beautiful valley, and it's just, yeah, it's stunning. And then there's also Gangati, which I would say would be the next. I mean, that might be even more stunning than Punakha, but Punakha has an amazing zong, which is their monastery. So what you tend to do when you're there is go to see the monasteries, the temples, and those are sort of the most auspicious sites to see.
Mm,
Of course, there's other things to see, like the textile museum, because it's very famous for textiles. There's so many other aspects, but I would say a lot of what you tend to do is these monasteries and temples, and very few are right on the road. Most of
right.
them you take a little hike to.
If you want to do it well, 12 to 14 days. Give yourself the luxury of time and space to take your
Yes.
time and really like immerse yourself. I think that's
Yes.
a really beautiful way because I mean, if you're going to go do a safari, you need at least 10 days to get there, land, get to the reserve. You know, it's what's an extra couple days, right?
And you do have there's an amazing eco system. I mean, they have these blackneck cranes, which they have a whole festival around. And that's something also. They have about 150 different festivals in
Mhm.
the year. So they're sort of very, typical. They're not like these festivals that you might expect here, but they're very quaint and very charming and very special. They actually had, I don't know if you saw on social media, they had their first international
Oh, yes.
music concert recently.
Yes.
And do you remember who it was?
Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, he was the
Yeah.
first international performer. And
That's
he felt
wild.
very honored, which I thought was like he was the right person. I
Yeah.
just felt like he was such a good pick. And he met the king and queen and he talked about it on social media and he was like so impressed with the country. And I was touched because I knew Ed Sheeran, not that I knew him personally, but my daughter was a huge fan when he was very new in the
Yes.
business. And so it was nice to see, him come around and do this. So yeah, it made me happy.
I mean, their first international concert, it just goes to show how preserved this culture is and how uninfluenced it is from pop culture, which is virtually unheard of. You can go to the middle of the Jaisalmer Desert in India and find a McDonald's. Like,
Oh my
this is
gosh.
very unique, right? And
Yeah.
especially for travelers that are looking for more unique, immersive, and authentic experiences, you really couldn't, and sustainable, of course, because that's what I always like to look for in destinations. I think Bhutan it's been on the top of my list now, and I'm so excited for people to learn more about it. I want to kind of change track just a little
Yeah.
bit and talk more generally before we wrap up. But here at the podcast, obviously, our name is Transform with Travel. So we firmly believe that travel has the power to transform you. And I know that you say this a lot too. I know that's something you say quite a bit. How has visiting countries like Bhutan and other transformative destinations like India and Patagonia, how has that influenced your perspective, both personally and then, of course, professionally, because you're in this industry? How has that shaped up for you?
Well, travel is so important for opening our minds. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, like languages kind of open your mind to what's possible, but going to visit some of these places that are perhaps more spiritual or more authentic or more traditional in ways. When I went to India for the first time, I went to a very special Ayurvedic spa called Ananda, which I used to represent when they were
Mm.
quite new in the industry. And that totally opened my mind to so much because in 5 days that I stayed there, they said, you have to stay 5 nights, otherwise, you're not going to feel the full effects. So I said, well, shucks, I have to stay 5 nights at a spa. I don't know. I'm not sure I could do this. And you wore like a white, kurta, and it was in the Himalayas overlooking the mountains and Rishikesh, which is the birthplace of yoga. You had to eat your special food and your special treatments, and every day you did yoga and meditation and all these things. At the end of 5 days, I was like a new person. I was like a baby. I might have told you that. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I've never had all my senses heightened like that. And I just have never quite experienced that again. So to me, that was an incredible transformative experience. Anybody who can experience Ayurveda, I mean, I think it's quite something. And then Patagonia is one of those places that oh my gosh, I just love. I mean, it's just a stunning, and there are places there. I worked many years for a place called Zhao Zhao, and it's in this magical place in Patagonia overlooking lakes and the foothills of the Andes. And there's almost like a special feeling there, like you feel in Bhutan.
Hmm.
These very spiritual kind of places. And it just changes your outlook on life and maybe gives you a little hope for the future.
We need a lot of
I know
that.
times I think going to some of these spiritual places is not a bad way to go. And I think, travel, I think, is going to do very well this year. I mean, people are just so addicted to travel and they just, no matter what, I think they're going to keep going. But I think that Bhutan is definitely on a bucket list for people who have traveled a lot. I mean, I can tell you in our industry, I meet so many people who say, oh my God, it's on my bucket list, like you said.
Hmm.
And people who've been in the industry for 40 years and they're like, oh my God, it's on my bucket list. So it is one of those very special places. And I think the fact that they do kind of create and they are careful about how many people come in, and the SDF helps that, so the fee helps maintain that. And also something that's kind of important to know is that any hotel or any company has to have at least, I believe, a 50% Bhutanese owner. So there's always some kind of Bhutanese ownership there, and that's also a way that they can maintain their culture, their authenticity. We like to say it's like a living cultural museum,
I love
because
that.
it really is. There's very few countries you can go to where it's really so authentic, and it's a fascinating place.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I will put you on a list for an upcoming trip
Oh,
when
I would love
we
that.
can do that. Yeah.
Don't tell my husband just yet. We'll
No,
get the
no, I get it.
details.
I get it.
So,
No, I mean,
speaking of the future, and you talked about the future of Bhutan, but I'd love for you to share just as we wrap up here about any like upcoming projects or things like what are you the most excited about for your business, for like personally,
mm,
professionally? Like what's the future of Sari?
that is a good question. There's always new things to discover in this wonderful world of travel, and I feel like sometimes I have to pinch myself because there's so many people who are wonderful in the industry too. And I mean, I spoke to somebody this morning I hadn't spoken to in I don't know how many years, and I was like, but we went right back to where we were, over the years. And it's just people who love travel have an open mind for the most part, and they think outside the box, and they're accepting of more people. And I think we need more of that these days.
Mhm.
And that's what I tried to teach my children. I mean, to try to, I think travel really does create sort of an experience where you realize you're more alike than you are different. No matter where you go in the world, you can feel that there's a connection. I mean, we're all human, and our business is very human connection oriented. And being at the Fora Forum was an amazing experience for me, because people really, you could feel that they were excited to be there. And there's a lot of excitement in travel. So
Yeah.
we are very fortunate.
Yeah,
And
100%.
wellness. I mean, the two, I mean, wellness and travel, I mean, they go so well together.
Yeah, we
And
need to have another podcast on wellness travel because I know you represent some amazing, amazing properties
oh
that
yeah,
can
the
literally
No Palace. Oh my
quite
God.
literally transform your
Yes.
health, which will then in return obviously transform your life.
Yeah.
So we'll do another episode on wellness
Okay,
travel.
cool.
We finish these episodes with rapid fire questions that I did not share with you beforehand. So
No, you didn't.
yeah,
Oh my
sneaky,
goodness.
sneaky, sneaky. So number one is, and I'm going to say that you're not allowed to say Bhutan here, but what country has left the biggest impact on you? And I think we got to take Bhutan off the table since we just spoke about it for 45 minutes.
The most impact. Boy, that's a tough one, because France is sort of in my DNA almost,
Hmm.
because I started so young and I studied French for so many years. And I mean, I just love France. But then I would say India.
Hmm.
India just touched me.
Yeah.
And some people are nervous about going to India, but boy, when you can go there and be with the right company and see things from, the eyes of somebody with experience, I mean, it's very special. Have you
Yeah.
been?
I have. My
Yeah.
husband and I spent 5 weeks
Oh
there
my God.
traveling, and I always say that's my answer too. Actually, India is always the country that impacts me, and I like to ask the question impacts because favorite country and most impactful country are often two different things. Because India is incredible and it's also very challenging, and so I love that you said that because I know that we're very similar in that respect. And number two is what's your must-have travel item? Like, what's
Oh,
your
oh
favorite
boy.
accessory?
Interestingly enough, I'm not good at packing because I like to have my creature comforts,
Okay.
because I do travel so much and I just want certain things to be with me. So let's see. What's my favorite? My Bose noise canceling headset.
Ooh, got mine on now.
Oh my gosh, I live by those. I live by those. I meditate with them. I do my podcasts.
Yes.
I listen to those music. And even if it's noisy, the birds wake me up in the morning and I want to go back to sleep, I'll put them on.
So
So
good.
yeah, use them for, and of course the plane. Oh my gosh.
We'll get Bose to sponsor this episode. So
Yeah, right? I think you should, because honestly, I tell so many people about
right?
them.
You're like, here's my affiliate link. No, okay. So number three, what's the biggest life lesson that you've learned while traveling?
To trust that everything's going to be okay, even though it doesn't always feel like it. Somehow it all works out. You might go through hell once in a while, like with flight delays or, missing a flight or whatever it is, but somehow you make it.
Mhm. 100%. And that's a huge tenet of Tibetan Buddhism as well, is just trusting and surrendering and accepting and just
Not
constant
always easy,
not
not
always
easy.
easy. It's a lifelong, long, long, long life lesson there. But well, Sari, thank you so much. I'm on fire. I can't wait to visit Bhutan one day. I hope our listeners have found a brand new destination to obsess over. How can people connect with you online if they want to say hi?
Okay, so either Sari Pod is my handle on Instagram, Facebook is Sari Freeman. They can email me, Sari at passagesofdistinction.com. It's long, but it's what the name is, or info at passages of just, you can reach my team if I'm traveling. And then there's Bhutan.travel, which is their website that has an incredible amount of information, FAQs, what to do, how to do to get there. And then, of course, your trusty travel advisor like you.
Yes. I love that. Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait for a part two to come up later this year, I'm sure.
Thank you, Kelly. Really wonderful to be with you. Really loved
Thanks.
it.
Thank you.